G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of the Aussie Screen Printers Club. I'm here with Sam, and we're, I don't know what time it is, 6 o'clock on a Tuesday. I thought we'd spice it up a bit and squeeze it in, otherwise it probably wasn't going to happen for a bit by
Uh,
the sounds of things.
yeah, exactly. It might be a good new time. What do you think? Like,
Yeah,
we're able
but
to eat in the evening like this, maybe it'll
it's
be a
not
bit,
bad.
yeah,
That's it. So if anyone's got a spare evening and wants to come have a chat, we're so down.
yeah. Want to make it more interesting than just the two of us blethering on. But we do have a
Exactly.
guest today, right?
We do. We do.
Cool. So what you been up to, mate?
Just trying to get jobs out on time basically.
You really
we
busy?
Yeah, we've got heaps. We're always pretty busy at this time of year with all our like uniform stuff. This year I said yes to a bunch of rush jobs. I don't even know why. I think people forget the world goes on after 30th of June, but we've got a bunch of events and stuff to make sure everything's done by, but love saying yes, so
Yeah, it's hard to say no. So
Mhm.
you've got a load of people with event times and dates. So you got deadline jobs as well, and you've got to.
Yeah, yeah, as well as our just a lot of other jobs as well. So, um, but with like the kind of market that we're in with the uniforms, it means there's a lot of jobs, not necessarily all big ones or
Mm,
whatever. There's just yeah, a lot of individual jobs. So that makes
mm,
it easy for things to go wrong if everything's not 100%.
yeah, yeah. I know that feeling. Um, yeah, there's a kind of, I don't know, if you had 1,000 jobs, let's say at 20 garments each, it's an awful lot harder than doing a few orders
Mm,
of, 1,000 each or whatever, right? It's
exactly.
hard
Yeah.
finding that happy medium for sure.
Yeah.
Um, what's your minimum now? Isn't it like 300 or something?
I wish. Yeah, we've got a minimum of four for embroidery
Four.
and DTF. Yep,
Oh, for DTF. Yeah, okay.
DTF and
Why,
embroidery, which
why
I hate.
four? What?
It's just what we've always. It's what we've always had for DTF and embroidery. It just it works well for uniforms, I think, because most people, if they're buying a uniform for one of their staff or whatever, they'll usually get four or five, which it's not awesome, but it looks after them. And when they get merch, when they order more hats, that's probably where we make the money off that client, but probably
Okay.
not heaps in those little ones here and there.
So it's almost like prospecting. You're bringing the price down, just getting four out the door, but you're building the relationship and looking for them to come back for more.
Yeah, it's usually like the first order with them is pretty good because they'll like order a fair chunk, but then it's like when they start getting through those or adding employees here and there, those are they're kind of annoying just because they're small orders, but also if they're sort of repeat, so it's you're reusing proofs and everything else, and there's not as much admin or legwork once you've sort of got their garments and designs down pat.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Do you ever do that thing where you get an order for, I don't know, 20 t-shirts or whatever, but it's a customer that could buy an awful lot more and you just print up or embroider a few hats and chuck them in the box as well?
that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we call them dick sucking hats.
Suck it, that's right. Fair
so,
enough.
so
Yeah.
we do that. Yeah, we've got a few on the go now. People have ordered a lot of polos, and they've done better than we thought they would. We've like here's a few, throw a few hats in there too, and it sort of usually works out for the better for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Feel like that sort of stuff's important. And do you find like customers that maybe have even been with you for a while say things like, "Do you do hoodies?" Like they sort of don't know the other stuff you do. Or do you do polos? Or
Yeah, we get a surprising amount of like, oh, do you do this? And like, yeah, we do. That's like our main thing. We've got clients that we've done lots of like we like paper printing and business cards for them, and then they're like, "Oh, do you guys do hats?" I'm like, "That's what we that's what we do. We don't really do the paper printing, but we do for you."
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
So
Gosh. Now you've also been traveling, and I know that when you travel for two reasons. One, to go on holiday, and while you're on holiday, buy a lot of kit, or two, just because you bought a lot of kit.
yep.
So you've been buying stuff. Tell us about that.
We've just bought another embroidery machine recently. So we have a four head Barradin at the moment, and we bought a six head Barradin now to go with
Wow.
that.
Okay.
So that was a fun little trip down to Newcastle and pick it up on the weekend last
Right.
weekend. So
And
that
is
was
it commissioned? Is it in place? Like, what's the
yeah,
state of it?
it's yeah, we got it back. We left here at left the shed at just before 3 on Saturday morning, got down there at lunchtime and packed it all up, and then loaded it Sunday morning, got back at like 8:30 on Sunday night,
Wow.
and then unloaded it with the crane on Monday morning at 7, and
Just a
got
minute,
to
just a minute, just a minute. With the crane.
yeah, with the crane.
What do you mean? What's wrong with a forklift?
Well, I
That's
figured
pretty big.
it was cheaper to just get a crane and and
Are you serious?
then try to get a forklift. Yeah, because in the past we've always used a forklift, but here it wasn't as readily accessible to get one. So I was like, oh, we'll just get a crane and just pick it up and drop it off.
Wow, amazing.
So
So it's obviously pretty big.
yeah,
Six.
it looks surprisingly big compared to the four with only two extra heads. I think it's about 3.2 meters long.
Wow, okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then we got it serviced and checked over on Wednesday via text. So she's all running now and run a few jobs off it. It's a bit newer one. It's still secondhand, but it's newer than our existing one. So yeah, she just runs pretty nice.
So is it kind of, given that it's new, it's got more kind of mods and things on it that
Yeah,
work
there's
differently or better or
a little bit. There's a couple things on there that are a bit more useful. Like I guess probably the one that makes a bit of a difference is the previous one or our older one. You can't if you're running a job, you can't sort of get out of it and start loading the next one and teaching its colors until that one's sort of finished and you take it out of drive.
right?
Whereas this one, you can sort of start working on the next one in the meantime, and then you can just sort of swap over pretty quickly. So
Okay. So ostensibly you've got 10 heads that you can run
mm,
simultaneously. Well, that's massive. You've more than
it's
doubled your output.
a massive difference on our like sort of because we've got a pretty high cost of production, I guess, with just the way sort of we're set up. Actually, well, to me it seems high, but now that we can sort of churn out way more in an hour than a forehead, it makes things much better.
So you've got the same cost of production, but the output's much greater. So it makes it more cost effective for you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Doing the numbers, it only has to save us 5 hours a month to pay for its repayment. So I
Wow.
think that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah. It's a good business model, good business decision. You
Mm,
obviously worked out the return of investment as well and know
that's
what you got to
it.
do. That's tremendous. And has that
Yeah,
whole area of your business been growing, the embroidery side?
yeah. Embroidery is probably it'd be up there with probably our biggest area of business, especially this time of year for fleece and stuff. It's a pretty popular option.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So I actually did see an Instagram post of you, I'm assuming screen
Oh,
printing.
oh yeah.
So you're still doing a lot of that. I know you're doing a lot of DTF and you got your new heat press and everything as well. But
hmm
you're still doing a lot of screen printing jobs, or you're finding mostly a bit like Jacob, you're doing more DTF now.
I'd say we're probably doing more. We're definitely doing more DTF. We still screen print here and there. Um, when need arises,
That's
but
interesting. What is the need? What would
that's
cause you to say, no, let's screen print this one?
probably it's probably more volume. Um, Volume's probably the biggest thing. Um, and I guess just if it's cool, work and content, because that's sort of it's still what sets us apart to the other local guys, because no one else screen prints. So it's like, oh, even some of them, I'm like, we're not going to make money off it if I have to screen print it, but it would be cool content or whatever. Then we'll screen print it. Whereas it would be very easy just to say, we'll DTF this, and it just goes in through the sort of production process.
Yep.
Mm,
And you've got your two platen heat press. How's that going?
it's sick. Yeah, it's
Is it?
it makes a pretty big difference, I think, just for sort of ergonomics for Caton, who does a lot of the heat pressing,
Yep.
because we just had a clamshell before then. Um, but we still got that for more sort of we do funny locations and bags and things like that. So it's still important to have, but for your sort of run of the mill t-shirt, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And that runs on air. That's a compressed air.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
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 Nice. And they're not too expensive. They're quite good value,
No.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's sort of been on the list for ages and I never it sort of just always got pushed down and down and then this one was starting to play up a little bit. I was like, okay, we're buying one now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, they're surprisingly what they are. I didn't even realize it came with an air compressor. So I was like, oh, that's cool.
Oh, gee, that's a double
Yeah.
whammy. That doesn't normally
Yeah.
happen, I'm sure.
No,
That's a separate standalone unit.
that's right. Yeah, it's pretty quiet. So yeah,
But
it's
you
good.
also have the biggest air compressor in the Southern Hemisphere, if I remember right.
Basically, exactly.
Have you still got that other one?
You bet I do.
Okay.
Sitting in the corner, not doing anything yet.
Shame.
Still, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
We're
you could
probably,
always flog it if you need to, right?
yeah. Oh, there's definitely like those sort of their second hand sort of market for those sort of things is pretty
Yeah.
good, surprisingly. So,
Yeah.
especially up here. But yeah, I reckon we're just going to plug it in and see if it turns the lights off. And
Yeah. Well,
tip,
sometimes, in my humble opinion, because I don't really know much about electrics, but sometimes I think these things are totally overrated in terms of the amperage
mm,
and sometimes I think it's just good just to turn it on and see what happens, what goes off.
yeah,
Um,
see, I don't know how keen the Sparky will be to wire it up for us just for a look. But I just like connect it. You don't have to be here when I do it.
it is three phase, right?
It is,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Can't be
yeah,
that bad. Do you remember what the amperage was meant to be?
60, 60 amps,
60.
three-phase.
Wow,
It's
that's a lot of kilowatts
a
going through.
lot.
That's
Mhm.
crazy. Okay.
But it's variable, so it technically shouldn't run at that all the time. But when she starts up, I'm sure we'll know about it.
There's that kind of sudden draw of electric. It's a screw. I've been doing a
That's
lot of
right.
research on air compressors.
I
Uh,
bet.
yeah. So but it's a screw one. They're like the top of the tree, really, aren't they? In
That's
terms
right.
of
Yeah, yeah. It was an awkward size for our press because it seems like everything up until so our auto needs like 75 CFM, I think. Seems like anything up to 70, easy to get a hold of. You can sort of get on from your sort of retail tool shop or whatever, and it'd be sort of sub 10 grand for a brand new one. And then as soon as you go over 70, it's like 35 for a new one. So there's a
wow.
massive jump.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, I guess you never know. You might need it in a few years. You might start adding these other kind of air
Mm,
machinery on, and you can
we'll have
just run it
heaps
off the
then.
one compressor then.
Yeah, we'll have plenty, I'm sure.
So I hesitate, but I'm going to ask, tell me about the auto. Is the auto not together
It's
just yet?
not together. It's
Just haven't had the time, really.
it's just exactly where it was.
Okay.
It's I guess like just sort of following what our market has been doing, it hasn't been sort of asking for it. So I've just been sort of rather investing in those other areas that seem to be what's actually making our money
Yeah.
at the moment. So, but yeah, we slowly got like everything together for it. We've got because when we assemble it, we're going to sort of basically overhaul it and give it like a real good service and replace parts and stuff. So we've got all the parts we need. We've got all the screens we need as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
it's just a matter of installing it now, basically, and seeing if about that power. So
Seems
yeah,
like a job for January or something.
yeah, that's probably a good time to do
Yeah.
it.
Wow. Well, at least you got it. You don't have to trawl through, online sites looking for secondhand autos and
Mhm.
impresses. It's there.
Yeah, that's right.
I think you did get quite a bit of electrics in this place, didn't you, that you're in?
Yeah, we were pretty lucky that our landlord was pretty keen to look after us and put a bit of stuff in for free, so it was great.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm. What about you?
Oh, me, I've been really stressed
Hmm.
the last few months. Um, I think our last podcast was a couple of months ago now, but it was stressful then, and it got a lot stressful, a lot more stressful a couple of weeks ago. Just that kind of sense of feeling overwhelmed, like so many loose ends.
Mm.
I've got to finish that. Oh no, we need that. We need this. We need, and yeah, I start getting quite cranky with the staff. We have a huddle every morning where we just generally talk about what we're going to do and the day and what jobs are important and the timeline and everything else. And everybody gets to kind of, we call it a show and tell. Occasionally somebody does actually bring something
Mm.
to talk about, which is quite good. It's a good laugh, really, but it's a way of getting staff together. And but a couple of times I've had to kind of say, "Look, guys, I'm really sorry. I've been really antsy and pretty grumpy," and they've been very gracious.
Mm.
And said, "No, no, you're all right." But the truth is, I've been really stressed. I feel like it's getting a bit better. Towards the end of last week, we had a lot of we got a new team, I think on press, and now that we've got this other press going, we've had to kind of take our attention away from the main press and work on this other one and let the team do their thing. And it's just been a lot of errors happen.
Hmm.
Some, just human error, some people not thinking, some stuff just happening, weird things going on.
Mm.
And I think the guys have really, really worked hard to iron out all of that. So I think it's getting a bit better, but yeah, I was getting really stressed. And poor Lydia, she, you know, working with your dad is probably bad enough, but when you got to make business decisions with a grumpy old fella like me, I think
Hmm.
probably quite hard. But she did say, "Dad, you need to calm down." But the thing is, how, right? Like you get
Yeah,
stressed, but what do you do? Like you
yeah.
go,
How
"Oh
do
well, I'll
we?
stop being stressed." Thanks for letting me know. It's really difficult to kind of unwind.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but that's okay. And things are going well now. We got the rock in, the
Hmm.
impress in. A big, big, big genuine shout out to GJS and my man Joel from Rock Australia, Mick and Frank who came to do the installation. Um, Really, really beyond, what's the expression? They went beyond the normal accepted level of service. They were phenomenal. And Mick actually was really unwell with the flu, but he came anyway and he worked like a Trojan. They encountered quite a few issues, and yet mostly to do with air, I should say, they just kept on going until they got there. Couldn't say higher things about those guys. And
You're
uh,
right. Are they Aussie techs, like GJS's techs, or they come over from Rock to do it?
they're the GGS techs,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And Mick is much more of a salesperson, but he really understands the technology. He really gets it. He researches it, you know, aggressively and knows stuff.
Hmm.
And Frank's the main tech for us for that, and he was did all the training, brilliant. And Lucas and Greg, I think CEO and MD, were down at the show at Printpack the week before, and they did a lot of PR. They really did well
Hmm.
for us and obviously for themselves. Yeah, so I'm really pleased about that relationship. It's going to be
That's great.
good. But it came in, it got installed, and it works, and it's amazing. Everybody wants to work on it here. Do you know what I mean? Like, am I on the rock? No, you're on
Yeah.
this one. Oh, okay. And Lydia loves it. She just loves it. It's, and we haven't quite got up to 500 an hour, but we're at 410, 420
Okay.
pretty easily with one person.
Yep.
And obviously no need for an oven. So yeah, it loads, basically we've got the one with 4 heat presses. You load the t-shirt, does a pre-press, it loads the transfer on all these lovely lasers. It does the first proper press. It's a 5 second press. It moves to the next one. It's a 5 second press. And then it moves to the next station and the peeler pulls the transfer off, drops it in a bucket. It comes around to the last heat press, which has got that paper underneath it to give a
Hmm.
nice matte finish. Just presses that and it comes straight off. And it's, if I can put it this way, sometimes with working with a screen press, like the guys had I think a 7 color simulated process job on today, 850 garments. We do this one every year. And it's always like, oh, how long is this going to take us? They killed it. They absolutely killed it. It was amazing. But when you're working with that kind of print job with that many inks, you're just waiting for something to go wrong. You're looking at
Hmm.
every print, right? I need a bit more pink or a bit more wonder base or whatever it is. And, oh, the plan's getting too hot, but you don't have any of those fears with a DTF machine like that because it's just DTF, right? Like,
Yeah.
not much can go wrong, If it doesn't place a transfer, which doesn't happen, but if it didn't, the shirt just comes around blank and you just
Oh,
put
yeah,
it on.
true.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It just, it's like, yeah, okay, it's just a well pressed shirt. So it's nice to work on. Um, and when it's running, man, it is phenomenal. It just eats
Right.
through. But now we're running so many. We've been very busy too, and we've actually used the Rock Impress to take away some of the extra pressure that we have at this time of year on our main auto,
Mhm.
because it all stacks up otherwise, and it just eats through those jobs. But the biggest issue is always cutting transfers.
Mm.
So we've just put down our name, or put a name down for what's called an ARC 127, which is the DTF station flatbed cutter
Oh,
that
yeah.
takes a roll and cuts them all out because we're just doing thousands of them at the moment, and it's a slow process, and you want to cut them very neat for the rock because they've got to
Hmm.
sit in the bin and be the same size. Not just, you can work on it manually. So you've got these funky little foot buttons, and you press them, and the feeder will just, it's on rails. It just slides
Okay.
out the way, and you can do it manually. And there's this funky tray and all the rest of it.
Okay.
But that means putting someone else on the press, right? So
Yeah.
I'd rather we use the technology, but it's that's holding us back a bit. And also, we've got a DTF printer on order, which is yet to come into the country, so that's sort of holding us back a bit as well. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's good. Um, and just yeah, we've just been very busy. Kids camps, as you know, we do thousands of kids camps, and they're all time bound.
Mhm.
So it's felt like 3 pallets in a day, 1 pallet out. And I keep looking at it and thinking there's something not right here. Surely it's better be the other way
Where's it all
around, right? But
going?
yeah, but it will all start to. I can see. So in May we had the biggest month we've ever had. Normally June is the biggest month, and
Hmm.
we've blown the target out of the water, but I can see it's just about to sort of dip off a little bit for July, which, to be blunt, will be kind of helpful for us as long as it doesn't drop too much.
Hmm.
So yeah, apart from that, everything's good. We've got some new employees. Um, one of our main customer services sales member here has just renegotiated a contract. She's on a second contract now, and she does an amazing job. So yeah, that's another thing that happened. Yeah, I think apart from that. Oh, the other thing that did happen, this might not be common knowledge to other listeners, I'm not sure, but Auntie Moray, who's this fictional character who sends rude emails to Danny and Tony at the what's it called, the Chippy Tea podcast, had a final. Nobody knew it was me, right? So I'm Auntie Moray. So we had my reveal a few weeks ago, which was just such a laugh. We had a really good laugh on that podcast. So I feel like I got the monkey off my back finally. But
Yeah,
that was a good laugh.
the relief.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because my team have known that it's been going on for a couple of years or something. The team have known that I'm Auntie Moray. And yeah, I said to them that day, Auntie Moray is going to get revealed. So
The end of an era.
the end of an era. Thank goodness for that. All right. Well, we've got a guest sitting patiently waiting to come in. Do you want to tell us who he is first, and I'll let him in through the door?
Yeah, we've got Chris from Cherry Studios down in Melbourne, and yeah, keen to have a chat to him. We've known him for a couple of years now, so yeah, should be a good time.
Let's get him in. Wow.
Hey,
Hi, gang. How you doing?
Hey,
good.
how are you, Chris?
I'm good. Nice to meet you, Sam.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, mate.
Thanks for the invite
Um,
on.
yeah, no, it's a delight. Thanks for coming on. I mean, it's just fantastic. And in the evening as well.
Yes, indeed. It's bloody horrible weather here, and I was gonna sit out in the warehouse, but it sounds like shit out there with the roller door banging around. So I'm upstairs in the warehouse.
Still at work though. Do you normally work quite late?
Yeah, yeah. At the moment, I mean, I always have, but one of my junior printer, he's in Europe at the moment, and Kate, my embroiderer, she's in Bali.
Oh,
Um, So extra late at the moment just to make up for all of that.
good time of year.
Yeah, best time of year for it. Yeah, indeed. The joys, the joys.
So you guys already know each other. How did you guys connect originally?
Uh, Through Instagram, when I got started, I came across North Print on Instagram and reached out to Joshy a few times for some tips and whatnot. And then when we got our auto. It came from Archerfield, which is only about 45 minutes an hour from Toowoomba, where Joshy is, and we linked up when I went up to Queensland to grab that. So we met in person briefly for that. But we've exchanged many messages on Instagram, and early on it was just me asking for tips on things, trying to figure stuff. Um, but no, he's been awesome.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy.
No, it's yeah, I feel like it's the other way around now. You're doing all sorts of things. You're growing like that's why I was like, oh, keen to have Chris on because I feel like you've grown a lot faster than your sort of average printer.
Yeah, yeah. I think, like, obviously I'm not from up north, so I don't know what the markets are like. But obviously Melbourne is unique, and like we just maybe the business is bigger down here. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
We're also in an area of Melbourne that, like, I'm the only screen printer within sort of half an hour. I'm the only person who does bulk embroidery within sort of half an hour of where we are located in Melbourne as well. So as a result, we've just picked up a lot of work because of that quite quickly. We do a fair bit of contract stuff for other workwear shops and other decorators too. Um, so I think part of it is obviously just work ethic, investment in machinery, and working a bucket load of hours. But I also think we're positioned quite well where we are, which has helped our growth as well.
Mm. And do
Sweet.
you mostly get walk-ins or you online more or
We don't do any we don't do any marketing, any sales or anything yet. I'd like to, don't get me wrong. I've got all these ideas for Instagram Reels and that sort of stuff, but we're just like we couldn't handle any really any more than what we're getting at the moment, and that has been the case consistently since we started. I did like early on. I linked up with a couple of smaller blanks brands, Color Plane being one of them, and we developed a relationship there where they were feeding us a lot of business, which was fantastic and still do. So a lot of it's just been from, I mean, you could call it strategic relationships or just relationships in general. A lot of our growth and our business and all of our business now is just based off relationships we've started with people in the industry already. And I did have a background from sort of having a couple brands and whatnot. Um, but no, like we don't really get many walk-ins. I put us on Google like a month or two ago. And as a result, we've got a few phone calls off that, which is cool. We're now like appear on maps. So if someone searches screen printing or embroidery, we will come up. But that wasn't the case 2 or 3 months ago. Um, it's really just like word of mouth and specific sort of relationships that we've built with some people, which has allowed us to get the work that we have.
Hmm. So tell us then, how did you get started? You mentioned you did your own clothing brands, did you? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, yeah. That was so I'm 26 now. That I was in year nine, so at school, and it kind of
Wow.
started as like a bit of a project. In year nine, we had the ability. The class was called Personal Skills or something, and we got to kind of do a project based on whatever the hell we wanted. And I chose to do a clothing brand. I'd always had an interest in it,
Wow.
and business. Like I'd had the interest in clothing and fashion, but also just in business as general. So it worked well. So I used that. I started a clothing brand for that in year nine, and I did that for 2 or 3 years, and then I changed the name, and I did it again for another 2 or 3 years. But I think from that, I kind of was known as the guy that made t-shirts. So
Mm.
that evolved into people being like, "Hey, we need some t-shirts. Where should I go? Oh, I need a logo. Can you help me? Or I want to start a brand. Can you help me?" And I used to always give that info out for free. But then when I did come around and start the business, which was about 18 months, 2 years ago, I kind of already had this like little build up of customers because I was already known for that.
Yeah.
And I was helping with some friends and family with their merch and their workwear and whatnot. So we kind of already had like a little list of people. And I remember writing the list when I started the print shop. I was like, these are my first bunch of customers. And I've still got
Mhm.
a notes tab on my phone. It's pretty funny. But it was like 10 businesses. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. We're sorted. Like we've got these customers. They'll order once a year. They'll do two, three, 4 times a year. Like I'm sorted. I've got a business. Um, but yes, back to your question, it did start from a clothing brand 10 or so years ago now, and now we're on the other side of it, I guess.
And so you've been going for as a formal business for 1.5 to 2 years.
I The first job I did, like paying job, was November 2023. So not too, yeah, a year and a half, year and a bit.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I thought you were a lot older, to be honest.
I get that. I get that. It depends on whether I've shaved or not. And yeah, yeah. No, I do get that quite a bit.
So
But
what was the thing that finally made you say, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start a company and
yeah.
crack on with it. What did
I
that for you?
look, like I always knew that I wanted to get back into clothing, and in my mind at the time, that was having a brand because that's what I was obsessed with from a young age. And I took a break from I think in maybe 28 or 2019, I just stopped my brand at the time. I started working in real estate, so doing residential housing sales, and that takes up a lot of your time and your effort and your mental capacity as well. So I kind of dedicated myself to that through 19, 20, 21, 22, and then the start of 23. So I just committed completely to that. But I always knew I was like, well, I want to get back into having a brand. I was on the side of doing that. Like I was thinking of names. I trademarked a couple names. I was designing. I was sampling. Like I was still playing with it.
Mm,
But I think there was a bit of a realization point where it's like I got to the point where I effing hated real estate. Like I didn't like the people I was working for. I was good at it because I was good with people, but I wasn't enjoying it. And I knew it wasn't my long-term sort of play. So I made a conscious decision that I had to get out of that, but I didn't want to work for anyone else. So the only option was to start your own business, of course. And there was a bit of consideration back and forth, but I think the nail on the head was it was more around the point of like for me to sustain an income with a clothing brand, like that takes quite some time. And you have to
Mm.
be not lucky, but like that sometimes takes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years to build a clothing brand to that point.
mm,
Um, Whereas, because it's like one brand, you've got to do a heap. But I flipped it around. It's like, well, what if I become the person that supplies that for people? I already had the experience dealing with screen printers, obviously from my own brands and helping other people. I understood it all. I had screen printed a couple times before, like I had a little manual carousel at home, which I'd actually sold and got rid of. Um, but it was kind of just looking at it from the other point of view, like what if I become the supplier and then I've got free reign to design and make whatever I want, so I can do my own brand.
mm.
Since then, I've been way too bloody busy doing other people's stuff
Yes,
to
yes.
to do my own. But it was, yeah, it was like I have this love and this passion for that. How do I get into that, and how do I maintain a wage in that industry? And at the time, being the guy that made it was the only sort of sensible decision in my mind.
So, what was the first step once you'd got that decision made? You'd had ideas about names and trademarking and everything, but actually, in terms of starting the company
Yeah.
and where you're going to be located and what kit you needed, how did you, and did you start in your garage again and sort of build up, or like how did you start all that bit? Because
So
a year
I,
and a half feels like you
yeah,
just went into a factory and bought stuff and it
yeah,
happened.
yeah. No, I did. So what eventuated between sort of the end of my real estate career and starting this, I actually had started another brand with a business partner at the time, and we both put in 25 grand, and we invested that in mostly in stock. It was a large amount of stock that we'd purchased from overseas. Now, right before we launched that brand, we collectively made the decision that the business would be best suited if it was one of us. So we gave each other the option to either buy buy someone out, or you buy me out, or whatnot. And she took the business, so I got my 25 grand back, which was fantastic. And then I took that money and used that to start Cherry. And then I also, it's a friend's dad, has been a bit of a mentor to me from the start. And he also came on board with a little bit of finances as well in terms of like a business partner. Um, and through working with him and whatnot, we bought our first machine, which was a four-head SWF embroidery machine. So that was the first bit of kit we got. Then I got Vastex for like four color um, manual press, and then a heat press, and we did that all kind of at once. And then we just threw them in the back of his one of his other businesses factories. Like they had a little bit of spare space in the back corner, so we threw
Nice.
all the equipment in there and just I got a I got a full-time job just pickpacking at a warehouse around the corner, which was like a mate's business. So I'd work there during the day, and then at night I would print. So I didn't go like balls to the wall in terms of like not working, but I worked there during the day, just pickpacking orders in the warehouse, and then it was like 300 meters around the corner. And
Wow.
That's sick.
as soon as I finished, I would come down to Cherry, which was in the back of my mate's warehouse, and start printing and messing around there.
Well, that was really fortunate getting space in a mate's warehouse
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
you.
It worked out. It worked out incredibly well. Like we did. I was living with an ex-partner at the time, and or I did look into sort of like chucking it all in a shed on the farm because they had copious amounts of storage. But it just made sense from from a logistical standpoint to put it in the factory, like obviously getting access to couriers, delivery,
Yeah.
the right amount of power as well for the machines and the future of the machinery as well. So it made sense to place it in there. We did outgrow it very quickly, but it was the perfect start, and it was cost effective, and it was easy, and perfectly located.
And since then, you've moved to a new premises then.
We've done two. So in almost 12 months to the date, we were still there at our first place. And then we moved, we moved from, it's actually next door to my new factory. So the original factory is number one. I'm two.
Oh,
So
true.
I'm looking at it out the window now. But I moved, so that was 40 square meters, my space that I had in the back of that warehouse. And we outgrew that incredibly quick. So then I went to one around the corner, which was 120 square meters, and that was fantastic. I think I was there for about 6 months. I threw up a mezzanine, and under that, I built my dark room. And that was fantastic because that's when I got my auto. So we had it all set up beautifully there, but I just outgrew that very quickly as well. I remember the first like the biggest order we'd done was like 300 units, and then we went straight to 4,500 units. It was like a commercial job. And just having all those garments there, I quickly realized I was like, fuck, this isn't enough space for what we're envisioning in the near future. So very quickly, we then moved from there to this other factory, which is 500 square meters, uh,
Yeah, right. Okay.
which is fantastic. And it's actually positioned perfectly. So it's next door to my mate's business, which is where I started. And we don't need all the 500 square meters at the moment. So they're leasing the back portion of the warehouse.
Genius.
Which
Hang on a
is,
second. He
which is
gave,
how we started.
is
Yeah.
he the guy that gave you the free space at the back of his?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're now leasing some of yours to him.
Yeah. Yeah. And when
It's
like we
fun.
share a forklift,
Yeah,
if I don't
right.
have any milk, I'll run over there and steal some milk. It's actually perfect. And it is when this factory came up for lease, we were obviously in the one around the corner, which was 120 square meters. And it was almost like too good not to take it up. It was just next door to them. They needed a little bit more. I needed more space because I wanted to get another auto, a bigger machine, and then we wanted a bigger embroidery machine. So it all like timing was perfect for it. And it's a nice community too, because obviously we're very close with them. Uh,
Mm, mm.
so we float across the road all the time and have beers, and yeah, it's good.
So when you got that first really big job, was that the decider about the auto as well? You said we need to get an auto. Like, what was the decision that made you
We
do that?
we'd actually just invested in it. So the auto was what got us that job. The job was essentially passed on to us from Elijah and Jackie at AS Color. They had seen the investment we'd made to put in to get the auto and brought it down, and um, we got it in July. That's when I came up and saw Joshy in Toowoomba, and I reckon maybe 3 or 4 weeks later they visited the shop and saw the setup, and as a result, uh, recommended us to someone for that
That's
job,
great. That's
which we're
great.
incredibly grateful for. But that was a massive moment, obviously, having only done like hundreds of units to then go
Mm.
straight to thousands. And it took like 5 times longer than I thought it was going to take. It was absolutely chaotic. I had a couple of friends come in just like at the oven folding and whatnot. But it was awesome. It was so cool.
It's another good reason for buying AS Color, I have to say. That's pretty
Yeah,
amazing. Good old Elijah. That's tremendous.
they're awesome at what they do.
So what have you got now? What kit have you got? You've got two autos, is that right?
Yeah, I've got an 8 head Taz compact, which is 3 or 4 years old. And then I've got about a 15-year-old 14 color Hawk, which it's not running yet. I bought it from Leapfrog, and it needed a little bit of work, so I got it for a good price. But I've been slowly just fixing it up, cleaning it, replacing
Yeah.
lines. Um, I just got a request for I think a 7 or an 8 color job the other day, so I think I'll need to hurry up and get it running for that. So yeah, between the two autos, but the 8 head's currently the only one running. And then I got a the same gentleman that I bought the 8 head from in Archerfield, I bought his 12 head Buridan embroidery machine as well.
Wow.
Um, so I've got that for our embroidery and then the two autos.
Wow. And what do you use for ovens? And you got any other cool kit?
The oven's just a Gilro oven. I
Yeah.
don't know the specs on it or anything, but I think it's about a meter wide belt by 3.5 meters. I like arguably when we're doing back prints, it's not enough. I do need something a bit bigger. Um, and then we've just got 4 or 5 heat presses, and that's probably as far as all the kit goes at the moment.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Wow.
keeps us going.
You're certainly keen at investing. I mean, that's a phenomenal trajectory in terms of growth. It sounds, serendipitous with all these different places you're able to get into. But you're not shy in investing in kit. I mean, is that something you'd recommend to people starting up generally, or are you just completely crazy?
Both. Probably. I look. I always had my eyes set on like the numbers. And by numbers, I mean the larger orders. And it became very quickly apparent to me that printing on a manual, that just wasn't achievable. I remember when I got my first 100 unit job on a manual, and it sounds silly because there's guys out there smashing out that 5 times a day on manuals, and that's all they've got, and I get it. But I remember when I did my first like 100 Ts, and it was just like a two-color front, two-color back, and I just thought like, nah, I don't.
I've I remember that exact moment.
Yeah. I no, like and not to like I'm very impatient as a person and I think a lot of entrepreneurs and business people are and that's fine. Um but I just again like whenever I do anything I kind of not to sound like a wanker but I don't compare myself to the other print shops like at my sort of revenue level and that like I look at all these big guys and I'm like, oh, I want to be like that. So it's like, well, what do they do? Like, what's the equipment they have? What do they do? Blah blah blah. They're doing big orders, and that's a very simplified and maybe immature way to look at it. But from the start, that was just always my goal to do the bigger numbers. In order to do that, you need the bigger machinery. I also knew that just by having decent sized machinery, you would be like, it's a fantastic first impression for someone to walk in the door.
Mm,
And like, we haven't bought anything new. Every piece of kit that we've bought, I would say we've got at a good price. And we didn't buy them when we needed them. We bought them early, but that allowed us to wait for the right sort of pricing and deals on things. Um, so I'm pretty confident that like everything we bought, we got for a great price. Um, but buying it early allowed us to probably do that. But for me, it's just about how we appear in terms of like we look like or fake it till you make it, I suppose. Uh,
Mm.
and the goal was always to do big numbers and to build a big business. So machinery was the most important part of that to start with. Now it's staff, obviously. Machinery was the first thing in my mind.
Do you have an optimum order size? You talk about big numbers in terms of pieces in an order. Do you have a kind of place where you think the threshold is right in terms of the quantity? Because it can really stuff you up if you have an order. If you have 10 orders, let's think of a scenario. If you're printing 4,000 a week, let's say, and you
Mm.
suddenly get 4,000 a week and then a couple of other really big orders,
Yeah.
it can really snarl the whole process up in terms of all the other small orders going through. Do you have do you want to hit 20,000 a day type thing, or like what's your sweet spot in terms of the quantity of pieces?
We're probably we're not at that point now that we're doing these big orders consistently enough to probably look at it like that. I Anything under 100 units is just frustrating, like in terms of setup and
Mm,
everything involved, especially if it's multicolor. And some of those smaller ones are just a pain to set up on the auto. Like I don't have a manual press. Like when we're doing 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, like I feel like you'd be quicker on a manual, but we don't have one. Um, I love anything around the realm of 300 to 500 units. They're they're quick and easy to do. I can put the new guy on it and he can still knock that out in a day, even if he's going like incredibly slow with loading and whatnot. Um, Anything over the thousands, obviously fantastic from my point of view. Like that order I mentioned before is still to date the largest we've done in terms of quantity. Um, but we did really enjoy that. The only, obviously, if you just don't have your processes and your workflows right, a big order like that actually can become a bit of a nuisance because it holds up your machine
Mm,
for an X amount of time, and then all these
mm,
other orders
mm.
just get pushed back. So I can like it was a nuisance at the time because we took so long to do it. If we did that again now, it would be a piece of cake. Um, but optimal numbers, I mean, I'd love if we could have a minimum order quantity of 100 units for screen printing, but like we just can't.
Hmm.
We have 20 at the moment. I think I should put it up to 30. Um, but yeah,
You could go the other way. Josh was talking about this earlier. What's your minimum again, Josh?
But DTF, it's 4. DTF and embroidery is 4. And
And screen printing, what would you?
screen printing's 50.
50. Well, there you go. Okay.
yeah.
We still do
We
20 for screen prints.
we get a lot of like smaller brands starting off, so and they ask for screen printing, but they're not going to do 50. I think I just need to be a bit heavier on the pricing in the bottom sort of range of the numbers.
Yep. Yep.
We do 10 for embroidery. We advertise that it's 5 for DTF, but like I'll do 2s and 3s as well. I'll just charge more. So technically it's not like it's 1 for a DTF. Um, but yeah, I think we'll never really say no. We just have to charge more for those lower quantity ones, and we're probably not charging enough as it stands.
So you would actually sell, let's say, just screen printing and DTF as you'd actually direct people. So if someone said, I just want 10 shirts and it's a color job or it's more than one color, let's say, you would just say, oh, we've got this thing called DTF. We'll just do that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, definitely. And but I sell it from a price standpoint. Like I'll show them what both is going to cost. Obviously, if they're not making 20 or more, like screen printing is not really in the discussion too much, but I will briefly run through the costs of certain things. And I do that from a point of view is like a lot of people will start with maybe those 10 units, but then they'll come back and do like 20 or 30 or 40.
Yeah, right.
And I want to word them up on screen printing for when that happens. We had one just recently and he only wanted 5 for a photo shoot. So we DTF'd them, but now he's come back and he's wanted 50 and we're screen printing them. And it's the same design. We've
Mm,
just converted it over. Um, I do give people the option and I'll outline the costs. We will screen print under MOQ, but we bracket it as sampling. So then we add $100 sampling fee to on top of everything for that, which essentially like remunerates us the same as if we were doing 20 of them.
yeah, yeah.
But we
And,
give them all the info without making it overly complicated for people that are new to it.
and you do samples like that, Josh, as well?
Not really. No. Oh, it depends. I guess we're a little bit different market. But I usually, if I can, I'll just be like, here's your digital mock-up. It's going to look like that ish,
Right,
basically.
okay.
But thankfully, we don't get asked too often. But we do it like, but yeah, it would be DTF and stuff. But we wouldn't sample a screen print. I
No,
wouldn't.
no.
So that's pretty cool that you offer that, because I have been asked before and I've just said no.
The way I like a lot of them are brands using them for photo shoots, so they need something
Mm.
cool. We won't do like a pre-order drop sort of thing, but or like drop ship, I suppose, for them. But it's really just I I don't want to give them a DTF if they're gonna go through to a screen print with production because it's not an accurate representation of colors. It's not an accurate representation of how it's going to feel and look and the lighting and whatnot. So I would like if this was me doing it as a brand, I'd be prepared to pay a little bit more to get a screen printed sample to allow to have a better representation for my photo shoots. And don't get me wrong, like there's times where I just think like, shit, that was silly. Either they don't come back at all, so it was kind of a waste of time. But then from a cost like analysis point of view, we still charge them all the screen setups. Um, if they don't come back straight away to go to production, we'll charge them half of them again when they remake them. Um, and we charge them the sampling fee on top. So we were still remunerated. Like if it was one color print, the extra $100 pretty much pays for what 20 of them would have been roughly anyway. So we were still remunerated for MOQ, but there's probably like there's a good percentage of them that we never hear from again.
Mm.
And I think a lot of like young people just do that to start the brand, but then realize it's probably not as easy as what they thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It happens all the time. And then those ones you regret it, but then there's some that go the other way and they make some cool shit and like they come back again. And I've always kind of prided myself on, and it catches me a few times, but like saying yes when someone else would have said no, like gets you quite a long way in business. Um, like taking it back to real estate, like if the other agent wouldn't show them through on a Sunday Arvo, I'd show them through on a Sunday Arvo because it would go so far in their mind. Um, and it would just progress things quicker than they otherwise would have progressed. So again, like now I regret saying yes to a lot of things that I say yes to. Don't get me wrong.
Mm.
Um, but we've been reviewing it at the moment because we're issuing new pricing as of 1st of July. And I was always umming and ahhing, like, do I do it? Do I not do it? Do I do it? And I'm leaving sampling fees for screen printing on there for the moment. But then also, like, I'll use a bit more discretion when people come across and ask for.
I, I guess you've got sort of that, you've been in it for a long time. You sort of have an eye for it. You're like, oh yeah, this one could do it right. You sort of, and after, yeah, over time you figure out who probably is going to make it and who isn't, and who should say yes to.
Yeah. And if they're asking for screen printing, it's like they've done a little bit of research. They've gone out and spent some time engaging in it, and I can respect that. There's a lot that just come and ask for a print and they don't know what the hell it is. So I'm more than comfortable selling a DTF transfer to them regardless. But when someone like when you can tell someone's trying to piece something quite special together and they're building a brand, and they're putting a lot of pride into it. It's like I want it to be the best it can be. And obviously, in my opinion, screen printing is that from a print point of view.
Why? I'm just being devil's advocate here because this is such a big
Yes.
debate everywhere. But why do you say that? Why do you say that screen printing is better?
Look, from a non taking sort of price and logics out of it, I suppose, like I see beauty in it because it's more of an art form.
True.
Um, I there's obviously incredible screen printers out there that have taken years and years to build their trade and their skills, and I think that's quite impressive, and that's what I aspire to do. And I like it sounds so silly, but I think of DTF as just like cheating. And
Mm.
it's not, and it's like it's so fantastic and it's come a long way as well in recent years too. And I always say that to customers when they complain about them peeling off in previous runs or whatnot. Um, but no, it's hard to sort of put into words. I just, I love it from a business standpoint because I know we can absolutely pump them out. Um, I know you've got the new Impress machine, so obviously you'll be able to do some good quantity on DTF as well now. But I like it because it's like when we get the big orders, it's the only option. Like we want to just smash them out on the auto. Uh, the color matching, I believe, is better. Obviously, you get more vibrancy in that as well.
Mm.
I don't know if it's just our DTFs, but obviously you get like the little faint white outline around a lot of them. Um, yeah. And I'm of the opinion that you will have a longer print life. No one really knows what your DTF is going to look like in 5, 10 years because I don't know if the technology's even existed that long.
Mm.
I've got some of Dad's teas from 40 years ago, and yes, the print's cracked, but it's still on there.
And if they're 40 years old, they're water based. And that's the interesting thing, because I think you're right. My view is, I think you're right about, it just feels like you're kind of cheating in a way, or it's fake or whatever. But at the bottom line, it's water-based ink, but it's printed digitally onto a carrier sheet. That's the way I look at this. People get kind of caught up in the film side of it, but it's simply it's a transfer. It's literally it transfers the print onto the garment.
Yes.
It is then, of course, pressed and glued, if you will. But so we use different language. I'm not going to share what the language is, but we use different language for customers, and we've started to take the decision away from them. So if it was a clothing brand, we don't do many clothing brands now. It's just not our gig, and I don't enjoy the experience of trying to talk down a 20-year-old. Be careful what I say, given how young you guys are. From I'm going to be selling millions of these, Dolce & Gabbana stand aside type thing. And then them saying, we want you to screen print this. It's got 400 colors in it. It's a simulated process job, right? I just don't want to be in that debate. But I do want to be in a place where the kind of clientele that we serve can print even full color for the cost of a screen print, knowing that it isn't a screen print, but that it is real ink, not screen printer ink, but it's just ink. It's not, it's going to, what's the word I want? It's going to fuse together, right? Via heat, and it's going to be stuck down. Otherwise it just flakes and breaks. In 40 years, it won't even be on the shirt. I agree. And that's the difference. So if someone really cares, we'll direct them. And most of our jobs are screen print. But if it's not, possible from a financial perspective for them to go with a screen print because of the color count and the quantity of pieces, DDF works perfectly. And most of those customers don't care. A brewery or a clothing brand, or, someone that's wants a really high-end product that they're able to say is screen print, for sure, 100%. And then you've got the issue of quantity. So even with the Rock Impress, and I was talking about this before you came on today with Josh, we're hitting kind of 410, 420 an hour. We're just working out how to get that up to 500 an hour. That's with a single operator. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. But today the guys did, I think, they did 850, maybe 950 of 7 color simulated process long print, and they killed it. It was beautiful. And I was sort of watching the Rock go, and I was watching our Auto go, thinking, yeah, they are actually worlds apart. And then I thought, does this customer care? And the truth is that that particular customer wouldn't care. It's a student thing, and but we still wanted to do it that way. Without our own DTF printer, we wouldn't have been able to do it on the Rock anyway, because it'd be way too expensive for that quantity and that bigger print. But I can see the day coming where we will make that decision on the basis of just basic economics for us, if the customer doesn't have an issue with it. And I think that's where it's going to really break our industry. I think I've said this before somewhere else, or maybe on this podcast, it was somewhere else. Somebody asked me whether my customers cared about the fact we do TTF. And I said, the people that care about it and complain about it are the screen printers. And it's true, right? Because it is a threat. It does feel fake, but I use the language, it's a bit cliched now, but of trying to work something into your shop for business reasons that's complementary. That allows you to go, no, that's a job for that. No, definitely that's got to go on the auto. That makes more sense on that, and so on. And I feel like getting the economics of that right is the key. So Josh was saying, if I got it right earlier on, the fact that we can buy our own DTF printers, quite good DTF, 9-color, that kind of, spec now, and you can go up higher than that now, is going to completely change the way screen printers think about what they can do in-house, maybe for small runs, or maybe for the horses for courses. I had just a quick aside. I hope they don't listen. I had Supercolor on the phone 3 times. In fact, 4 times in the last week or so, wanting to know why we don't buy their stuff anymore. And I spoke to them about the various reasons for that. And they made a bid to kind of change that relationship again and started giving us a few bits and bobs. Um, but they knew that we had a rocking press, all right? They'd done the research. They'd gone, these guys have got a rocking press. Why aren't they buying our product? And one of the things I said to the top dog there was, well, we've got a DTF machine coming. And they went, really? And I thought, man, you're a bit behind the eight ball if you think screen printers aren't going to start looking and buying this kind of equipment. And obviously they're, big company and they're changing their model quickly and responding to that change in the market. But I feel like that's where screen printers are going to go. Whether it's a small DTF or, the full Booner type thing, it isn't an issue really, right? But I was chatting to Joel from Rock when he was here the other week, because he was intrigued because obviously we've got the rocking press going in, we've got transfers everywhere, and we've got all this screen printing going on over here. And he was sort of saying, what do you think? How are you going to make the decision about whether you go to the Anatole in our case or to the Rock? Do you think you'll ever get rid of the Anatole? My answer is no. We might get another one, but we are going to definitely expand this side of the business just because it makes financial sense. If our customer complains, we'll do something about it. Apart
Yeah.
from that, I'm not so bothered. Bit hard, I know, but you're like that already, Josh. That's what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Which
Surprised.
sounds bad, but yeah.
Does it? Does it really?
Business.
No,
Yeah.
I do like to eat
Yeah.
and stay afloat. But you gotta, yeah, I guess you gotta make those hard decisions at the moment. Like you see people selling up and stuff, and you gotta wonder, like, it's easy to do. I've been pretty skimp at times. I mean, like, fuck, is this us? But yeah, you got to make smart choices at the moment. So wherever that money's coming from, that's where you got to be focusing, I guess.
And it was, for me, it was Jacob at DeathClick who convinced me, having gone and seen the DTF machine, the Taz in the corner, and him saying, why would I do this and bust my back to screen print something as well as this for a customer that doesn't really know the difference? I thought, you've hit the nail on the head there. But if all your customers are clothing brands, you've got a different issue. You do have to consider that. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
I also think, and this is more come to light lately, but just staff, like training
Mm.
someone to operate a heat press as opposed to finding a screen printer or training a screen printer. Like it's it's so chalk and cheese. Like
Mm,
I can have someone operating a heat press slowly in an hour.
mm,
That's like, what is that for screen printing? Like they can
mm,
unload, they might have to unload for a couple months before they can even know anything about loading, but then they'll be doing one t-shirt every 5 minutes. Like
mm,
it's just, you can't compare them. And I think that's like, I'd love to get to the point where we've got our heat press fleet and I'd love to do DTFs in-house as well. But for now, we outsource. Someone else locally in the same suburb has a machine. Um, but I'd love to get to the point where it's like DTFs is where they start, and then they find their flow and they move around through the business
mm,
depending on what they're interested in and what they're good at. Because DTFs and end of the oven unloading and heat pressing is just perfect for anyone starting. But we're in the position right now where the only printer we have that knows what they're doing is me. And I've got my junior guy, but he's months away from being quite helpful in a screen printing front, but he's great on a DTF heat press. So again, it's like, Well, there's a few jobs on the board right now that I really wish were DTF jobs
Mm,
because
mm,
he could do them. But now I have to do them in amongst everything else. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, and that's looking at it from that's taking the passion and the love for screen printing and the art out of it. That's, as you've said, like purely looking at it from I suppose, a financial point of view, but also just what's actually possible. Like I don't have someone who can operate that screen printing machine other than me. So if it's not me, we're screwed. Like we're just not getting jobs done. And there's been days where the machine doesn't get turned on. Like I'm on embroidery, I'm with admin, or I'm with Tian doing something else. Like there's days where we've got 10, 20 screen printing jobs over the next 2 weeks, and I haven't even made a dent in them because I'm in other areas. Uh,
Mm.
whereas if I had have sold some of them as DTF, they would have been done by now. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, that's the that's the difficult part at the moment.
Yeah.
That's
Somebody said to me recently the hardest thing to learn on a DTF job is simply how to thread the shirt.
Hmm.
Let's be honest, the rest of it is very, very straightforward and simple. So if you're able to say, right, here's 20 jobs of 30 T's, here, these are the transfers, there's the heat press, this is how you thread a shirt. You as the boss don't have to get involved in that at that point. Get on with your job, see it caught as smoko and or whatever, and you can then do whatever. But if you're then caught up on the press, on the auto,
Hmm.
you can't do your admin. And are you the guy that does all the quotes and stuff as well?
I've got I've got a graphics girl now, so she does graphics quotes, mock-ups, spec sheets, all that. I'm still checking everything. A lot of the customer communication I'm still doing. She's easing into it. She's only been here for a couple months, um, which has lightened my workload, and now I can print more. But yeah, it's still not ideal. Like there still isn't a balance in it.
mm.
It's
that's
hard.
that's my exact like my same situation. That's why we don't screen print as much. It's just like, yeah, it has to be me. So, and we're out in the bloody sticks. So, good luck finding anyone with some sort of printing experience.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, and I guess those jobs, you're right. Like they're the ones that end up like blowing out because you're like, oh yeah, today I'm going to do this thing, and then all of a sudden, like the day is coming to an end, and you're like, I didn't even do what I needed to do for production because you get stuck with some customer issue or getting a few quotes done quickly, and then it turns into the whole day. They usually end up being the sort of the ones that aren't looked after as well, almost.
Mm.
Yeah, it sounds like
Mm.
every day for me at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like only worsened by the fact that two of the team are overseas, of course, which is terrible timing. Um, but yeah, yeah, it's fun.
Love it.
So just talking about staff, do you guys run casual contracts or fixed term, or like how do you set up your employment kind of relationship with your team?
You go first, Tuffy.
We're just pretty standard sort of contract because you do yours differently. Different to me, I think. Hey, Sam, we're just sort of pretty standard like employment type thing, I guess.
We do casual contracts for new starts and 0 hours, but with the caveat that if we bring them in, it'll be for a minimum of 2 hours, and then they just get employed full time.
Oh,
So,
okay.
or they get flicked if they're no good. Um, and that is slightly dubious in the sense that I don't know what it's like in Victoria or Queensland, but in New South Wales, certainly you've got to be really careful with casual contracts because if you do employ them for full time hours for an extended period, they're ostensibly, from a legal perspective, full time employees, irrespective of the contract that they're on. So it's never been an issue, but I know it can be an issue for others. So they come in on a casual, and then if they stick around, they get converted to a fixed term contract for 2 years with one repeat. And after that, they go on to permanent contracts. And so my, like all these businesses, my fear is, you know, even if you're buying very expensive machinery, which our kit always is, the issue is always the cost of staff. And if you grow too quickly and you need to be able to work on the business rather than in it, as people say, you need to get that team going, and they're all on permanence or even fixed term. So you can't bin them very easily. In the way the law works here is it's all in favor of the employee. So if you get that wrong, you can get quite burnt, certainly bruised. I get kind of nervous about that. And you do get a lot of duds come through. And so casual contract works really well for that, because you go, look, sorry, it didn't quite work out, and see you later. And, that's the end. So that's how we do it. And we bonus people. I think we've spoken about that before. And that seems to work okay. But yeah, it's kind of scary if you're renegotiating a contract today with one team member, and they're on their second cycle of the fixed term contract. And I was talking about how, when we get to this, it needs to be permanent. And in the back of my mind, I was like, did I just say that? you know, keep your mouth shut, because you can end up with people that you don't want, and they shouldn't be there. And it's very difficult to work out how to exit them safely for them and for the business as well. That's how we do it.
So they're on like a contract that's different to just being like employed casually or full time to the business. It's like a separate way of doing it. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a genuine contract. So it promises hours. Basically, that's the difference, and holiday, and sick leave and so on, compassionate leave. Yeah, so it's a contract that says you are employed for this number of hours between this, 9 and 5.
And for this term?
Yeah, for 2 years.
Okay.
This is your rate. This is the increased grade and so on. And what I find here is that a lot of people just don't know how contracts work. The employees don't know how contracts work. And so you spend a bit of time trying to help people understand the protection that it brings for them. That's, I guess, the theory behind it. But the other benefit from that is, a casual can say, sorry, I'm not here on Friday. I want to sleep in or whatever, I want to go to the movies or something. Whereas someone that's on a fixed term contract, that they're meant to be at work, right? So, I mean, I might need to take a Friday off, but that's called holiday, right? Or sick leave. Right. See what I mean? So you kind of
even though they're on a casual contract.
No, they're not on a casual. So, okay. Sorry, I need to clarify that. So there's casuals who can say, no, not here on Thursday or whatever. Fixed terms, which is kind of like well, it could be part-time or full-time, but they're contracted to be there on those hours. And then a permanent contract, which is the same, but in perpetuity.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And the risk of having an issue if you need to get rid of someone, I know I'm being very blunt, but we've got to be honest about it, increases the further away you get from a casual contract. So if a casual is a duffer, they're gone by Friday. If someone's on a fixed term contract for 2 years, and they start off well and then become a bit of a duffer, you might want to get them moved on, but you've got to have a pretty good reason for that. But the contract will come to an end, so you don't have to renew it. But if they go onto a permanent contract, it doesn't end. So they've either got to choose to leave, or you have to work out how to get them out of the business. And there are other ways of doing that. You don't have to just find a way of dismissing them or whatever. But but it gives them more security. If they want a bigger loan from the bank or something, they can say, well, I'm not a casual, I'm on a fixed term, or I'm on a permanent contract with these guys.
Right.
So how does it work in Vic, Chris? Is that
I believe, I'm not sure if it's 3 or 6 months, but I think it's the same thing in terms of like if someone is casually employed for like consistently, whether that means a certain amount of hours. It might be for 6 months. They can then request to go full time. And I don't know the laws around if you have to give that to them or whatnot. But that is a rule in Vic. My Kate, my embroiderer, she's 5 days, so she's full time. Tian, he's 5 days, he's full time. And then Ainsley, my graphics girl, at the moment, she's technically part time. She's doing 4 days a week. Um, and they're all promised that every week. And obviously,
Yeah.
they have their annual leaves and whatnot, which is biting me in the ass at the moment. I think going forward, we would start with the casual position for probably a fixed term of 3 months, which is the same as a probationary period in a full-time contract, I suppose. But you just have the flexibility of, as you've said, like if they're really shit and you just decide on Wednesday night that they're done, you can have them not rock up on Thursday, essentially. It also gives you that flexibility of if the machine goes down and you've at 2 p.m. you've decided the print's just not happening today, you can send them home at 2:30 instead of paying them till 4 or 5 or whatever it is. So I think going forward we'll do that. Unless of course it's someone with like a great amount of experience that just requests full time. Like if we're poaching someone from within the industry, they're probably not going to want to go full time if they're currently employed. Sorry, not going to want to start casual if they're currently employed full time. But yeah, I think going forward, I will do that. I had someone part time a few months ago, and we had to get rid of them. We essentially just had to make them redundant in order to get rid of them. And there was basis behind like they weren't performing the role that they were meant to be doing. So we essentially restructured the technically to make me do their role. So then they were redundant, and that's how we did it. But we had to pay them out a week or 2 weeks, whatever that was, pay them out their annual leaves as well. So it is costly. And I would definitely have preferred to have started them on a casual basis and found out those things within that 3 month period and then not had to have paid out a couple of weeks and the annual leave and all that at the end of it. Or jump through the legal hoops as well. Not that it was anything crazy, but it's just so easy to give someone the flick if they're casual, as opposed to, as you've said, if they're on a fixed term contract or contract in general.
And that thing of people starting on a casual and wanting to go up to a fixed term contract, the pay rates are different. So we pay above award. We don't put people on awards. I don't agree with awards. I think they're too inflexible and too generic across big areas. And also there's some really bizarre rules about holidays, which I think are immoral, but that's another comment. But, you know, a casual rate with the loading is worth a lot more than a standard rate without it. Plus, you know, you get your holidays. And so you're kind of asking them for a different level of commitment, but paying them more for it. You're saying, look, we want you to be really committed, but you're on a casual contract and can tell us to get lost. We're going to pay you more for it. It just doesn't make sense, right? It should kind of be the other way around. I understand it. I get the need for the loading, but generally Australia's been phenomenal for getting jobs, right? Like we find it hard to get people away from Centrelink because it's too easy, or they just do their 14 hours or whatever, and they get more from the government, which is just bizarre. So yeah, I don't like the casual model but it just reduces the risk. At least in my head, I think, yeah, okay, if we don't need them, we won't take them, or we'll bin them, as you said, and not worry about the requirements. But then, and I don't know if this affects you, I always feel really bad for people. I've been employing people for decades and different things, and it doesn't matter how many people you have or even who they are. Maybe I'm just a bit of a sucker, but I always feel really sorry when we have to get rid of them, because you know their life, you know their family maybe, or you know their situation, or they've got a mortgage, or kids going to private school or something. And But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, you just have to do it, even though it can be hard. Mm,
My only other thought on sort of starting people as casual is um it gives them something to work for as well. Like they know that if they do a shit, like deep down they would know that if they do a shit job, they won't stay. Whereas when you are a full-time employee, as you've highlighted, Sam, you can kind of get away with having good days, bad days, good days, bad days, good days, bad
mm,
days.
Mhm.
Like it can get to the point where they're having more bad days, but it's still not enough to fire them.
mm,
And that's a bit of like that's a level of security that's obviously designed to help the employee, but
mm,
it completely fucks us. So I like that casual role and I regret not doing it, but I like the ability or I like that the employee has something in the back of their mind sort of saying, oh my God, like if I don't do a good job, I won't get to the next level, which is a contract, which is part-time, full-time.
mm,
So if I can't do a good job of what I'm doing right now, Chris will send me home and he'll do it himself. Um, so not using it as a threat or something that you'd ever hold over an
mm,
employee's
mm,
head, but it's like subconsciously, if I know I can be sent home or not asked to come in, I'm gonna try and do a better job at whatever it is. And
mm,
I don't think that's a bad thing to have at all. Like we're always trying to get that little bit more out of each staff member. And maybe the fear of not having a job is the perfect thing for that, realistically.
As long as you get that person, if you get the person that doesn't have a fear
Mm.
and, can fall back to Centrelink or whatever, or just go and work in the bakery or, whatever it is, it doesn't work, right? Because they're like, whatever, see you later. But yeah, one of the things I struggle with a little bit, and it's, yeah, maybe because the things I've worked in before are very different, is that if, let's say we were banks, right? We owned banks or something, and that's a profession. It's a bit more traditional. Um, and it's a profession that people go into, and they might start as a school leaver at the register, or they might come in after doing a degree and start in management or whatever it is. But it's got a career progression, and everybody knows a bit about that, or another career. Screen printing has the same thing, but nobody knows that. So one of the things I discover is that we take people on. We got a guy just now who's fantastic. He's a young fella, and he is coming in, and he's like, "Wow, okay, this is how you print t-shirts. Okay, how does that work? How does this work? What's a Pantone?" And is suddenly quite enthused by it. He's really an exception because most people are just like, "Well, it's just a job. I'm just catching t-shirts at the end of a dryer and folding them. Tomorrow I might go and work in Coles." And I want to sort of change people's minds about that when they come in and help them to see actually, this is an amazing job. You could end up owning this company. You could end up running it. Like, why not? Like, this is a phenomenal um, industry to be in. Don't treat it like you've turned up at a factory to put lids on cans or whatever, like something very mundane, although I don't suppose people do that anymore. Um, and I find there's a place for us to try and enthuse people in that and help them understand that. There's nothing better, right? Someone comes in and they're really into it. They've never seen it before, let's say, but they're just like, wow, it's amazing. Like one of the guys today was taking videos of the auto printing this simulated process. And I said to him, "Oh, hope you're not going to put them online, mate." And he goes, "No, no, I want to show my mate what I do." I thought, that's phenomenal, right? He takes a bit of pride in it. He's into it. He's learning. He's, you know, understanding, even the emulsion over mesh thickness. I mean, how many people know about that? That's just phenomenal, right? And I feel like there's a place for us as business owners in this industry to try and cultivate that attitude and idea. Actually, this isn't a job. It is if you want to just catch t-shirts and you're going to be faithful to us here and keep coming along. But at the same time, we'd rather people progress and really get good at this and, take a whole business unit at some point and do that, do the DTF or do the whatever, you know. Um, so I feel like we need to do something about that. I don't know if you guys feel the same, that
No,
it's important.
100%. I also think it's like a thing with the younger generation that they want everything so quick and so like there's no patience. Everything's like instant gratification as well. And I think it's important to like maybe there was a time where you had to be at a company for 10 years to get a promotion. And like now everyone thinks like after a year you should be up for the next role. And after a year you should be up for the next role. And every year you should get a pay rise. Um and that's not the reality, of course, but showing your staff that they could have a future in a business is quite important.
Mm,
You can't see it and I won't show it, but on the windows of the office up here, I've got my dream of what the print shop could be. And there's four autos, there's four embroidery machines, there's a line of DTF sewing machines, folders and all that. And next to every machine is a stick figure, and next to every stick figure is a wage costing and that sort of thing. And that's my vision for the business. But
yeah.
I talk about it with the team, and I like, and especially like higher roles, like giving them a hope for a higher role as well. Like I'm sure Kate doesn't want to be on an embroidery machine in 5 years' time, but like there's a little stick figure that's like the production manager for the embroidery department, and there's a stick figure for sales manager, and there's like a
Mm,
HR training stick figure,
mm,
and like there's a bunch of roles just all over the place with approximate salaries just written next to them and that, and not to be held to or anything, but just showing the guys that there's a future here if you want it. It does
brilliant.
like you're not going to stay stagnant for the next 5, 10 years
Mm,
in
mm,
your role. Um, I even joked to them about like, oh, I don't want to be here 5 days a week for the rest of my life. Like, and talking about the honest reality of a lot of staff can buy into companies as the companies grow. I reference one of my good mates' dad's business. It's a panel beating business. His business partner was his old apprentice.
mm,
Um, and I like to talk about that stuff because I want them to go home and think like, oh, I could still be here in 5 years. I could be a manager here in 5 years. I could be an owner here in five, like 10, 15 years, whatever.
mm,
I've worked in companies where I didn't think I had a future there because that future hadn't been sort of outlined for me.
mm.
Um, and that's why I think it's so important because I remember leaving a job and then I caught up with my boss uh, many months later over a beer, and he kind of just said like, mate, you should have just told me you weren't happy. Like I would have put you somewhere else. Um, but like you're always too scared to do that as an employee.
Mm.
Mm.
But if the boss, like if you're just open about the possibilities and open with that level of communication, then the staff like already know those things before it becomes an issue in their own head. Um,
That's amazing. So you actually have a sort of pictogram on the wall, and you let the staff see that. Is
yeah, I'm very open with things. Uh, to the point where it like might be too much, but like they know what the rent in this factory costs. They know what our outgoings are. They know they make more than me. They know what I pay myself. Like where and so many people would be so against that. And there's probably some things that like even my business partner, he's an older guy, and he's a successful businessman in his own right. Some of those things he'd be probably be like, nah, you shouldn't share that with your staff. But I think there's probably like more harm to come from not telling them enough than letting them in on it and making them feel part of the business, making them feel important. Like so many bosses would just never even fucking tell you anything like that.
mm,
Um, and a lot of it they wouldn't give a shit, and that's fine. But I can guarantee you there's some things along there that they feel good about and they like and they're interested in, and it makes them feel part of it. Um, and like they don't we're obviously like we're still in a position as a company where like we're just reinvesting constantly. Like we're not showing a profit. We're just buying machines as you've seen and whatnot. So it's not like I'm rocking up in a brand new Beamer, and they're like, "Oh fuck, Chris, blah blah blah." Like,
Mm.
we're
Mm.
slaving away. Like they see me here hours before them every day, hours after them every day. They come in on a Monday morning, and all the jobs that were there on Friday, I've done on Saturday, Sunday. So it's like it'll never be like a scenario of, "Oh, here's all this money, here's all this business coming in, and Chris is making so much, blah 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 blah." And that's why I'm not scared of like showing them the figures because they see the work that I put in. Um, but I suppose if the business was in like a different realm, and if you were doing bloody 100 grand a week and they were getting $1,000 a week, they might be a little peeved off at that. But we're certainly not there yet. But yes, like you can't see it there really, but it's all on the windows. I just use chalk markers on the windows. They're the best whiteboards ever. Um, and every department's broken up into it's screen printing, embroidery, finishing, digital, office, um, every role, every approximate salary, uh, daily revenues from each department and each machine, which all comes to daily, weekly, and yearly totals. And like I've worked out what that business would make me. I've worked out what the costs on that would be. Um, because that's my mind of where we want to get to. But I've mapped it all out, and I'm not scared of showing the team that.
It's encouraging to hear a print shop owner with a vision more than I want to make great t-shirts and prints, which is obviously important, but to actually say, no, this is where I want to go. You used the word strategy earlier, along a little bit earlier on. You seemed like you're almost embarrassed to use that word. We've got to use those words. We've got to get into that language and understand vision and how if we don't have a plan and a strategy, we'll never even move in the direction of that. So it's encouraging for me to hear someone that's really thinking that way. And even if you don't get to all of those goals, you kind of show it to other people as you're saying, and they go, oh, wow, I could be that person in so many years and so on. And this isn't about where we're at now, it's about where we want to go. And you never really get there, I'll just tell you. But you know,
Yeah.
because when you get to that level, well, we need to get 20 people because we've got to, you know, and it just gets harder. But it doesn't matter, right? You just keep pushing and keep visioning what it is you want to do. So it's encouraging. Do you write that down in a document, in a strategy, or do you know
I've
formalize that in your head a different way? Or
There's a scary amount of it that just remains in my head. And like I'm big on the whiteboard. I'm big on writing it down. My notes tab uh, on my iPhone is pretty chaotic with that sort of stuff, and it's a lot of like late at night sporadic thoughts and whatnot. Um, but no, a lot of it's just visualized up top.
hmm,
I like there's numbers that go along with it. Like obviously you've got to be hitting a certain amount to have X machines. You've got to be hitting a certain amount to have X staff. Those staff need to be making you X amount to warrant them having a job. So there's obviously the financials behind it, which I dive into a little bit, but a lot of it's just about like the vision. It's just like what do we want to be? What do we want to be known for? Where do we position ourselves in the industry? How big are we going to be? Um, and as you've said, you never get there. Uh, I I remember when I like couldn't even dream of having an auto, and now I've got two of them, and I'm not really that happy. Um,
there you go.
two's not enough. Two's never enough, and it's like staff now is the issue, but it's never enough. And I get exactly what you mean. Like the goalposts are always changing in your and pushing forward in your head. Um, but yeah, it's like I have a rough idea of where we want to get to. That is a very detailed map of it, of course. Um, but it'll change, no doubt. Um, I'm trying to hire a printer with experience and I can't find one of them. And my map over there requires four or five or six of them. So we'll see how we go. But um, it's fun. It's
You
fun.
need to establish the HR department by the sound of it to
Yeah.
get them to resolve that. And I'll just say for the benefit of smaller printers that, you know, we've all been smaller and we are where we are now, whatever that is. And that I don't think it's always about having that huge dream, although maybe that's always in the back of your head, but it might be just right. How do I get out of the garage into what was your first one, 50 square meters, I think you said, or something like that, or to 100 or whatever it is, or how do I get that first order, or how do I just upgrade from, I don't know, a flash that we're using to cure to an oven, but just to kind of write those questions down. They can just be simple steps, because without it, you'll just be frustrated, and eventually you might have enough cash to go, right, sod this, I'll get the whatever it is that we need to buy, right? Um, so I'm all for strategy and vision. Um, and to open that up to the staff is pretty cool. And we do a bit of that without doubt. We're pretty open about it. We're not open about pricing. Um, Sometimes I think if you let people know what you charge and the price of the product, they very quickly forget how much the rent is on the place that you're living in,
Hmm.
how much your electricity bills are, and they go, "Oh, I could do this better than they can," and the next minute they're gone. Haven't ever experienced that here in this job, but I have in other places. How about you, Josh? Do you kind of create the vision and let people see it, share that with them?
Yeah, I'm pretty very similar to Chris. Like, I guess that's been like we've got unreal team here now,
Mm,
but I feel like being smaller and growing, it's pretty easy at this stage because you get some good buy-in because feel like they're part of that journey, um, and they're sort of yeah like the same things like they kind of they don't see it as like just working for Josh or Northprint or whatever. It's like it's a whole team thing. Like everyone wants it to succeed, I guess. So
it's ownership.
um, yeah, so um, yeah, very fortunate to have a great team that is yeah like pretty much the same as Chris's whole situation. So it's pretty cool.
It's very cool. What is your next piece of kit, though, guys? What's going on in the back of your mind about what you're going to get next?
Chris has got
Can I
something on
make
his
a
mind.
guess for you, Chris? Can I make a guess?
Go for it.
And
Yeah.
I mean, you may already have this. I don't know. An auto coater.
Mm. I saw one on Leapfrog today, their email.
All right.
I don't want like I I'm the only person that does screens at the moment. I don't want to like I do a pretty bloody good job with my hands. I remember my first ever one I sent to Joshy and he'd have the photo in our chat. There was just way too much emulsion and it
I
was
think I think I remember some mad drips or something
there
on
was
the side.
massive drips. I was like, what the fuck? I was so that was like the first 10 screens. I remember I'd coat them and then I'd take them straight to the wash bay because I knew, like, I didn't even let them dry. They were fucked. Um, no, I do think an autocoder would be awesome. In my head, we would purchase that when we go for like an eye image or something. I think you need an autocoder if you're going to go digital, like away from films. Um, But no, like I for now I do them all myself and I do a pretty good job with my hands.
But
But
if,
Tian hasn't started doing it yet. So if he can't get it, then we have to look at
yeah,
that pretty quickly. Um
but if you had a bigger team in the future with your vision, you don't want to be the one that does that. It's a bit like the DTF. Who can't run a heat press?
yes.
Well, all you got to do is put the screen in here, fill the emulsion up there, and press that button, and that'll do it as good as Chris or Sam or Josh has ever done them. But anyone can now do that.
Yeah.
That's a gift, right? So we've got a 16-year-old started here, which we don't normally take on, but he seems pretty keen and pretty up for it. And I said to Lydia, who's the production director here today or yesterday, oh, you should put him on coding screens. And she kind of looked at me like that. And I said, it's she's never even used it herself, bless her, but it's the autocoder. And she went, oh, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, right. No problem. Like, do you know what I mean? Like there is that kind of benefit to that. But okay, so not necessarily an autocoder for you
Um
just yet.
well I do need a bigger oven. that'll be like when we do big back prints, I just stand there, or one of us will just stand there, and we just got to wait for it to feed in a little bit more. Um, Depends on the speed of it. Like if it's just me printing, like if I'm loading and unloading, then you've kind of been given that little bit extra time by the extra few seconds it takes. But if we're doubling up, if someone's loading, someone's unloading, and if it's a big back print, we are slowing down for the oven, which is obviously a lot of those they haven't been big jobs, so it's like you might do an extra 30 minutes of printing. If it was 1,000 units, it's a whole different story.
Mm.
But definitely bigger oven. I only just got a dip tank a few weeks ago, which has been game changing. We were just getting the
Mm.
emulsion off manually.
Mm.
Um, and the deciding factor was for that was my apprentice, new guy. He was doing two an hour. Uh, like reclaiming two screens.
Is he on a casual contract?
I think it was his second day reclaiming.
Okay.
And I just went in there and I was like, nah, like I can't have this. And it was before he was about to go to Europe, which he is in Europe at the moment. And I just thought, I was like, one, that's not acceptable. I need to speed it up. And two, I don't want to be doing this while he's away. I called,
Yes.
I called Jessica from Jones Brothers and put in the order like straight away. I paid the invoice straight away. Like an hour later, I walked into the dark room and I was like, "Hey, mate, we've got a dip tank coming tomorrow." And he was like, "Cool." And I was like, "Yeah, great." And now it's you obviously put five in at a time. That's what it fills, and it's just so much quicker. And
Yeah.
but that for me was massive. Um, that was game changing. The oven will be next, and as far as the rest goes. Magnetic hoops is the only other thing. I know Joshy's got a bunch of magnetics and they're very costly to invest in at the start, but that will be our next point of investment. It's obviously just very expensive when you're running a 12 head. Uh,
Yeah.
Are they
and
quite
we don't
expensive, are
run
they?
them. So
Yeah, you got to bloody refinance the house to buy a set.
Really? I'm surprised.
Fucking
Why?
ridiculous.
They can't be that special,
they're-
can they? I mean,
what do
Not
you reckon,
really.
Joshy? Obviously, I haven't used them much, but
Oh, they definitely were. So we've got a full set we've got sort of like your left chest hoop size and then the bigger ones for the forehead. And I just bought two more this morning. I just ordered the wrong amount. You just made me realize. I had it. I ordered the wrong amount this morning to have a full set for the new six head, but so worth it. They're dear as poison, but we I I can't even remember the last time we used manual hoops. We only use them for the back of doing the back of hats. Is the only time we use manual hoops, really.
right. Yeah, yeah, they're like $250 a
Yeah, but yeah, I think what I paid today, 268 plus GST or something for the left chest ones,
well,
and then so we'll own 20 of them, I guess.
And that's the thing.
But
You need if you've got an 8 head machine, you need 16 of each size. So
mm,
quickly that adds up.
yeah,
Yeah, they're expensive.
yeah.
it just seems expensive for what they are. They're worth every penny. Well,
Yes.
1,000% wouldn't do it without them. But
Because
when
what
you
they're
buy them,
easier. Why are they worth it? I know nothing about embroideries, well, Josh, but what is it that makes? What do they do? What's better about them?
it just makes hooping just easy and it's fast. Like you have like the whole sort of hooping like frame setup thing. You like load your shirt on, and you have the back end already in there with the other side of the magnet with your stabilizer on there, and you just sort of line it up, and then you just push it down like near it, and it just like
Wow.
clamps down and doesn't move. Whereas the manual hoops, like depending on the thickness of your garment, you got to like adjust the tension on it on the outside to make sure it's tight so nothing falls out, but then not too loose or not too tight that you can't like hoop it properly. There's just a lot of stuffing around. Yeah,
Do you find that your magnetic hoops they don't leave as much of a mark on the garment either?
yeah, that too. Yeah,
Because we brush every single garment. Obviously, we put chalk on them to mark them. Um,
Mm.
a lot of the time because we don't have a station. We every single garment, and I used to steam them because I was so particular. Every
Yeah, I've done that. I've been there.
we got to brush and steam them. Whereas from what I've seen, the magnetic ones like that doesn't really happen.
Nah, we don't have to. We just we only have to put one chalk mark on the one that we sort of register where the design's going to go, and then that's the only one we just have to wipe off at the end.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sick.
Yeah, wow. But that's the next thing for us, just speeding up embroidery. Um, we've got the 12 head most of the time. Kate will run six. Like if she can hoop up six in the time it takes to stitch out, I like it to just be interchangeable like that. I don't want her doing 12, but then it runs and then it sits for 15 minutes while she's hooping up the rest.
Mm.
And what that also allows is right now head seven's giving me grief, but I just turn it off and use the one next to it. Whereas back when we had my forehead, head one was crap, but it meant that I lost
20,
25%
yeah.
capacity. So there's only been a couple jobs in the last month that we've used all 12 heads, or we've used 10 because two of them have been dodgy. Um, but right now she's doing sort of six with manual hoops, but I think if we go to magnetics, she'll be able to do probably 8 to 10 in the same amount of time, which is game changing.
Mm.
It just keeps feeding the machine. There's no downtime, ostensibly, other than just loading those hoops on each time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like an ROI right there. Just
Mm.
to you get that paid.
Embroidery is just charging for time, basically. That's all it is, really.
What about you, Joshy? What's next on the? I saw you just got the double heat press recently.
Mhm. Yeah,
How's that going for you?
that's been pretty sick. It's been really good for just your normal sort of run of the mill teas and stuff. We still do a lot of like weird stuff like bags or sleeves and stuff that we use like the manual one still. But yeah, for your general teas, it's pretty sick. So heaps better, much more ergonomic for Kate who does the heat pressing and stuff. So she's pretty small, so having her reach up like clamping that down with mad pressure on it. Yeah. But for things to buy, I guess actual things would probably be investing in before any sort of like cool, bigger equipment would be the rest of the magnetic hoops for the new six head. I thought I bought enough, and I'll have to look at my invoice. I don't think I ordered enough today to. I think I was thinking I should have ordered four. I think I only ordered two now that I think about it. But to make up, so we could run either one with the magnetic hoops, but we'll get another 8 or whatever it is to have enough for both. And then finally sort of like sussing out our threads, because we do heaps of embroidery, and we're going to change to a different brand. So we're going to change to Kingstar from Madeira, and we just inherited heaps of Kingstar, so we're trying to so we'll be ordering enough to have sort of at least 6 or 10 of each color that we've already got, as well as replacing the colors that we have already in Madeira, so which adds up
very quickly.
very quickly.
Thread, a lot of colors, yeah.
Because thread seems cheap until you have to order 10 of each color or whatever. So
yeah, we were lucky that when we got the 12 head, it came with about 500 spools, many of which were 70, 80, 90% capacity. So we got a head of it. But yeah, still very quickly. Like just the other day, I just got 12 black, 12 white, and 12 of another color that we've been using a heap of. And like that was just like $400, $400 there. And it's like, holy crap, like it adds up. It adds up. Definitely.
Where I've been sort of down the rabbit hole of how we can like actually store them well. And it's such a weird, like such a hard thing to store properly or efficiently. So that's my little project now to suss out threads, good storage, and I don't want to think about it anymore.
Yeah, changing thread colors is the worst. Like, especially when you're doing like that many heads at once.
Mhm.
And it's not something that we charge for a color change on screen printing, but we don't like I don't think I can charge for that on embroidery, but it takes longer.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
Wow.
if I'm doing 12 heads, four colors of thread, like what's that, 48 thread changes, that takes fucking ages.
Yeah.
Um, and some of them are so like it's a 15 needle, so obviously it stores a few, but some of them are so peculiar that you're pulling them out straight away to put something else back in there.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, that's a bit of a balance that we go through as well. It's like, well, we obviously do the maths on like how many heads we should run in terms of how many stitches it is, in terms of how quickly we can hoop them up, but it's also like how much time do we want to dedicate to threading up the machine? Like, should we thread up 8 heads and run 8, or should we just
Yeah.
um and not waste an extra 10 minutes threading up those extra 2 heads?
Yep.
Just just listening to you two talking about embroidery has confirmed all my suspicions about why I don't want to be involved in embroidery. It sounds horrific.
It's a beast. It's a different beast.
It is a different pace. It's such a different, yeah. And like we're trying to figure out what jobs we should run all 10 on, or if we should run, like, we'll definitely be running more the 4 and the 6 sort of independently. But yeah, it's like at what point is it more efficient to run, yeah, which one, or depending on the job or whatever. Yeah, it's it's almost a bit more kind of strategic to on like your planning compared to printing, because you're just punching out like whatever. Whereas this one, you have to be like, oh, this job's actually going to take 15 minutes. It can very quickly, it sounds sweet, but all of a sudden you can lose it, your like your margin there if you sort of underestimate your amount of stitches in a logo, and then you realize you're only getting 2 runs done in an hour and you thought you were going to get 4.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's the thing. We digitize, and some people do it differently, but we digitize after invoice, so we're
mhm.
estimating the stitch counts. And I don't know how the hell I did it, but I had one many months ago that I was like 20,000 stitches off. Like it wasn't quite a full back embroidery, but it was huge, and it ended up taking. I think I thought it was going to be 50, and it was 80,000 stitches. So it
Wow,
really took like an hour longer than I thought it was going to.
per run.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm talking like it was like 20 of the AS Color canvas jackets. So it was a small run of them, but it was very quickly the difference between like 6 hours or 10 hours, or whatever it ended up being.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, we lost money on that one. Like very quickly,
Mhm.
you just get it wrong. And then there's others where it's like I had one a couple days ago. I thought it was going to be. I priced it as 2.5 to 5,000 stitches, and it ended up being like 1,500.
Mhm.
It's like it's not really any difference. It was the machine was doing it quicker than we were hooping it up. So it's like yes, it was tiny, but we didn't benefit from that because we still had to take the same amount of time to hoop it up.
Exactly. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I've battled with embroidery a little bit, like whether we keep it. We do. I want to be an all-in-one house, so like it's important to me that it's here. But when you look at it from like what an embroidery machine can make you in a day and what an auto can make you in a day, it you kind of can get down the rabbit hole, and it's different for you, of course, Joshy, because you're um not doing as much screen printing, you're doing a hell of a lot of the DTF sort of stuff. But I just
Mm.
like, why the hell do I bother? And a lot of our embroidery is contract stuff, so it's like we're not making garment on it. It's just stitches. Uh,
Mhm.
and with Kate being obviously newer, she's not as quick as me, and I've kind of set our pricing based on like what I was doing, but that's not what we're doing at the moment. Um, So like I can't throw a newbie fee on the invoice. But yeah, embroidery, as you said, it's a very fine line between kind of like not making money on it or like you're paying for your time,
Hmm.
spreads nothing and whatnot. Um, Whereas like screen printing or even DTF, especially on your Impress, Sam, very quickly you can do good quantities in an hour or a day or whatnot. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, I like I said, I battle with it. I was hooping up a shitload today while Kate's away, and I was just reminded of how much I dislike embroidery. But fun.
How have you gone with your pricing and stuff? Has that evolved much? You said you've got a price change coming the start of next month. Has that been pretty interesting time?
I winged it from the start. So for the first, because obviously like you Google and you try and find out what other people are pricing as like your bit of a your guide, and a lot of our competitors and a lot of printers in Melbourne don't advertise any pricing. Um, and it's pretty easy to get a dummy email sent to them and get a quote. But we, I for the first probably 3 months of the business just winged everything. Like I didn't have a price list. I just said like, oh, that's $6, that's this, that's this. And I wasn't paying myself, and my outgoings were nothing, so it didn't matter at the time what we were sort of bringing in. I was just happy to be printing. Um, I think since then I've probably updated the pricing. Since having a price list, we've changed it 2 times. Currently, we've got contract and retail, as I know a lot of people would have. Um, I'm potentially looking at bringing that back into one pricing list as of July 1. We're doing quite a large amount of contract work and we're just not making enough on it. It represents too much of our business at the moment that it's like you go from making $10 on the hoodie and $5 on the print to now we're making $4.80 on the print and nothing on the hoodie. Um, so potentially I'll look at just combining those pricing lists again, upping some of our minimums, charging more for like those lower quantity stuff, especially screen printing because the setup involved, obviously, we're not making money on essentially. But yeah, pricing's just been it's been a bit of a weird one. I never did the right thing and figured out like how many of these we do an hour to remunerate ourselves, and that therefore that machine needs to make us X amount a day, which divided by that gives us this for this many stitches and this for this many stitches or prints and whatnot. I never went about it that way. I kind of just was guided by a couple other price lists that were publicly available and then kind of how I felt. Um,
Mm.
but there's times like I'll do a job and then I'll go back and look at it and just be like, geez, we didn't charge enough on that.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's others where it works out. And I look at it from a point of view of like as long as probably every week, like what do we do this week? Not what did like that job make us, not what did that job make us, like what did we do this week? What did we do last week? What did we do this month? Um, because you're not going to win them all, and like things will go wrong on press more than like a DTF or an embroidery. And very quickly a 2 hour print's a 6 hour print,
Mhm.
and it's like, well, obviously we didn't make money on that one. Or you probably still would with screen printing, but you know what I mean.
Not as much. Mm.
But pricing, I've never had anyone haggle us, which tells me one thing. Uh, so I'm using July 1 as a bit of an opportunity to evaluate to put something out there. Um, and I don't think many of our customers are getting like multiple quotes from multiple print shops, so I don't feel threatened. Um, a lot of people are loyal to us through recommendations, and then also just based on where we are with our location. Like a lot of our customers are local, so they're not really going elsewhere as much. Um, so I think I should be a bit more aggressive with pricing. Um,
So will you notify all your customers or will you just put the prices up? Yeah.
yes, for our contractors, we'll issue it formally in an email, just BCC every single one of them in there, um, and then I'll just build out an email to send out to the regulars more so. I'm of the opinion that I don't need to give notice for price changes. Like we haven't issued, we're not in contracts with these people per se. Like we're not. I'm of the opinion a one color print this month can be different to what a one color print was 3 months ago. Don't get me wrong. I do think some people would turn around and be like, "Hey, I didn't pay that last time." Um, but I also just think I don't want to be held to I can only change my prices once a year, which is how a lot of suppliers would operate, of course. And like a month before they do it, they issue a warning and whatnot. Get your orders in now, blah blah blah. Um, but no, I'll charge what I think we need to. Sorry, I'll charge whatever the price list says. But right now, I'm of the opinion it's not enough in quite a few areas, and contract stuff's hurting us because we're doing a lot of it. But obviously, remuneration per garment is just a lot lower, and the timeframes are also tighter too. Like all our contractors, they've already sold the job, so like the workwear shops or the other print
Yeah.
shop, they've already sold it. So like it needs to move quickly. And that's another thing. Like we're pushing back good paying customers to make way for lesser paying customers, which are our contract providers, I suppose.
Mm.
Um,
Do you do any contract stuff, Josh?
Yeah, we do not not we've done maybe a little bit of no printing contract, but we do a fair bit of embroidery contract stuff from around the place.
Mm.
And that can be interesting. That's a hard one because especially embroidery, it's sort of dollars and cents, probably more than cents than dollars, I'd say. And yeah, like if you underestimate something, yeah, it can vary quickly, especially like when we contract on a forehead is pretty wild because you sort of need the volume or to be able to um, you need more heads to make money on it. So I think adding the six head will make a big difference for our contract side of things. But it is good. Like I sort of just see it as the way our pricing is sort of worked out is like we also need to produce X amount of garments per month, and a portion of that goes to our sort of overheads and stuff. So it pays the bills, but we don't really make money, but it keeps us busy and contributing to those bills, I guess. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Do you do contract printing, Sam?
No, never, ever. We get asked to do it, and it doesn't take me long to say no. We don't do that retail.
is that purely a financial viewpoint, Sam?
Yeah, we do have a de minimis amount that we must make, of course, like all of us. And I just refuse to. I would be scared to, if this was the contract business and this was the retail business, and they kind of move too far one way, suddenly the profits are getting eaten up because we can't push that other stuff through. And I don't want that kind of barometer problem. I want to know there's going to be fair weather, but on the basis of retail for us. If that might be a bit obscure, that kind of metaphor, but I'd be nervous that the business might lean too much towards contract and we lose the profit that we're making on the retail. That's what I'm trying to say, because our efforts are in one corner or more towards one corner. So I've always just said no. We had a request for it this week, just yesterday, and they were quite put out. But I said, no, we don't do that. We're not going to do that. And now I know someone else that does, Chris. I recommend you. But no, it's too frightening for me to reduce the margin like that. There's plenty of fat in this industry at the retail level where we are. and that's to say the middlemen, um, to allow business to grow much better than most businesses I know. And I've worked in consulting where, the big daily rates, and it's very fat, but a lot of businesses don't have that. And I think there's a luxury in that for us, but I wouldn't want to compromise that with too much wholesale stuff. So no, we don't do any at all. Trying to think whether there's anything we've ever done. There might be a couple of jobs where there were agencies that were just getting us to do their stuff so they could on sell, but where they probably just had a tight margin themselves because we just give them retail prices. So that's the way I handle that. It's too frightening. And I think for us, I don't know about you guys, but we really, I mean, Josh has a spreadsheet the size of a tennis court or even a footy field, footy pitch. We're not quite as sophisticated as that, but we do know what we need to make. And just having the rock increases our output to 1,000 an hour fairly easily. And that's amazing for us. And as long as those two machines are running, and I know it's the retail end of what we do, I know we're doing okay. So our issue, like all of us, is a bit like you were saying about the embroidery machines, having that downtime because you couldn't hoop up quickly enough before the job finished. It's exactly the same with our presses, right? And it's the same with DTF. It's the same with screens. It's got the same issue, although obviously setting up DDF isn't complicated once the transfers are ready. But yeah, I mean, I drum it into the team all the time. Hey, that job took you 20 minutes to set up. Big deal. No, not big deal. That's a lot of shirts that could have been printed in that time, and they get it. And we have various ways of doing all of that. I just say something a bit radical. You mentioned, I think, iImage, or at least computer to screen. I think it's a myth that nobody wants to admit, that is necessarily speeds up your process if you've got a big color job. Specifically, by the way, with I don't know if you've done much simulated process, but it's actually really easy to register. I'd say it's easier than a block color, spot color job with lots of colors going on the press. But I get it, if you've got, like, we've got the kind of triple clamp template for Anatole, and we have these templates that we jig things around on. But at the end of the day, unless you're running like a 22 color or, something really big, I don't think it saves a whole heap of time. If the thing that takes time isn't the registration. If you've got a good screen printer, they'll register quickly. They'll get it first time. They'll get the press settled. They'll get it right, strike off some good tests, and then they'll go into production. But the time taken is cleaning out all the ink, getting the Pantones done, loading up the press, getting the squeegees in, taping up, right? I guess if you do CTS, you don't need to tape up, which is an advantage. I think the one that is useful if you do a lot of really high-res stuff is wax, because you're getting a different kind of dot laid down in terms of the thickness and shape of the dot. So the light travels through it in a different, or doesn't travel through it in a different way, if that makes sense. It's not a curved dot. It's a thick blob of a dot. Yeah. But that's not necessarily the reason for doing it. The reason for doing it is to be able to register real quick. So most printers like us, I think, on an average day, we'd probably do 5 3 or 4 color jobs maybe, and 6 single color jobs, which would all have an underbase. So, minimum of 2 screens, maximum of 6, let's say. There are days where it's just 2 screens, right? All day long. And So for me, I looked at it. I looked at what was it called? The Exile Spider 2. You familiar with that one? That's a wax one.
Mm.
Fantastic product by all accounts. But at the end of the day, I just thought that's 120 big ones that I don't want to spend on
Mm.
just making this slightly quicker to actually set up. But I guess if we did simulated process every day and we had bigger presses, that would be different. We probably would want to go for something like that. But yeah, that's my tuppence worth on that. I'm just conscious of time. I'm going to have to shoot through pretty quick. I'm on a cycling regime. I hope you're both impressed.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Regime's a bit of an exaggeration, but I've got an electric bicycle. My wife is determined to get me a little bit fitter at least. So yeah, time is slightly against me, but any final comments or questions that we had for today?
No, not too much. I mean, I didn't have too much of an indication about where the combo would lead or anything, and I was all for it regardless. But no, an absolute pleasure to come on, and obviously, I love these combos. There's a gentleman down in Vic in Bayswater, Dan from Born and Thread.
Oh
He's
yeah, yeah,
for years, and I sold him my forehead embroidery machine, and I was over there the other night till 11 p.m. doing him some training on the embroidery front. And I absolutely loved it. Like just sitting around and chatting,
chatting, yeah,
really just hearing from people that are have more experience in the industry too. Because obviously I don't know realistically I don't know anything. So these conversations are so good to have. Um, and you leave these sort of combos feeling good as well. Just having the combo with people that are like-minded and in the same area.
You remember you're not
yeah,
alone.
yeah. Well,
We all
that's the
have
other
the
thing.
same issues.
You
Yeah.
get, I get a bit of confidence from it, talking to people like yourselves and hearing the way you do things, and sharing what we do as well. And I think it's good to have a community that does this. We had Dan on this show ages ago, a couple of years ago, maybe now. Um, and he's certainly grown and moved to new premises, I think, since then as well. He's a top bloke. But yeah, no, there's no real agenda now, is there? We just kind of get on this show and chat away and ramble
Mm,
about anything.
that's it.
Good fun. All right. Well, Chris, really good to meet you. Really, really good to meet you and to
Likewise.
hear about your journey. And let's stay in touch and support one another. I always go on about maybe we should have a WhatsApp group, but people sort of seem to have different views about that. But I'm still quite keen to get some kind of, I don't know, Aussie Screen Printer Club WhatsApp where people can go, how the hell do you do this? And what's that? What's going wrong with this print? And so on.
Yeah.
So I might just do it and see if people respond.
Definitely.
You think we should just get on with it and do that?
And yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All the help's good. I've there's been many a times, and that's how Joshy and I started chatting, where I've just been stuck and just having someone to reach out to was so good.
Yeah.
I used I think Rogue Printers I've posted in a few times, which is
Lee
Lee
Stewart.
Stewart.
Lee's one, of course, and that was beautiful because I think I was printing at like 2 a.m. once, and it was daytime in
The
America.
right time.
No, it actually like no one in Vic was going to help me. No one in Oz was there.
Fantastic.
But putting something in, I forget what it was, but putting something in Rogue Printers at the time was fantastic. But just having that is so good because there's no on like there. I mean, there's online resources. Don't get me wrong, but what we do is so there's no textbooks. There's not even a course in Australia anymore for it. Um, it's all the experience is up here in your head, Sam, in other people's heads. Um, so yeah, we need some access to that.
Yeah,
That's it.
absolutely. All right. Well, I'll do that. I'll just set it up, invite a few people and see what happens. And yeah, if it's helpful, then good. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll be down in Melbourne possibly in a month or so if you're up for a visit.
Yeah, bloody oath.
Yeah.
I'd love to show you around.
Yeah, right. I'll let you know. All right, well, we'll call it a night. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks,
And,
Chris.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Nice, man.
Okay.
I'm proud of you. Doing awesome.
Thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
Sounds incredible.
It's an awesome industry. I love what we do. It's pretty cool.